Everyone. My name is Rebecca Martin, and I'm one of the business development managers here at Real Story Group. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be shedding some light on the latest developments in the marketing, media, and DAM marketplace. But before we get to that, just a quick introduction to Real Story Group for those of you who aren't as familiar with us. I have to say the core of absolutely everything we do is based on our research. And so we only work for buyers of technology. So we represent you. We maintain a strict independence when evaluating the technology vendors that we cover. And we don't work for vendors in any capacity. So believe it or not, this is unique in the analyst industry. It really allows us to be the toughest critics out there. We're completely unbiased when evaluating where the vendors are potentially a good fit, but maybe more importantly for you, the technology buyer, where these products and platforms are not such a good fit. But there are three primary ways that we work with our customers through our research subscription offerings. So the first way that you can see here, we help them get to the right shortlist for technology selection by leveraging the vendor evaluations and our online tools. So in regards to DAM specifically, since that's the lens that we're looking through today, our research is comprised of 34 different DAM evaluations. So we cover 34 different product solutions in that space. We also, moving to the next item, we also do a select number of consulting projects each year. And then finally, our tool Real Score, which has really changed the way companies are benchmarking their effectiveness with the technology that they already have. So those are the top few ways that we work with our customers. On the next page here, you can see a high-level overview of the digital marketing and digital workplace marketplaces that we have listed here into our 7 core areas of coverage. Today, we're going to be focusing on DAM, but you can see the other 6 areas that we evaluate. But Jared, if you don't mind just skipping to the next page, I like this view because you can see the marketplaces that you had just seen, the marketplaces that we cover, but each of the marketplaces are represented by a subway line, if you will, but you can also see which products and platforms that we provide evaluations for in each of these marketplaces, and those are representative of the stops. But this is what we call our digital workplace and digital marketing technology vendor map. This is available if you'd like to download it right from our website at realstorygroup.com. So just a few quick things to mention before I turn it over to Jared. As a follow-up for those on the call today, we're going to be providing a copy of the slide deck for you. For the subscribers on the line, we're going to have an archived version of today's presentation that's going to be available on your subscriber dashboard for review. And then finally, as we move through the presentation, if there's any questions, feel free to type your questions in the questions tab. That way Jared can find it and address it. So let's go ahead and start the conversation on the 6 DAM trends to watch out for in 2017. And to walk us through this discussion, I'm going to turn it over to Jared Gingras, our Managing Director here at Real Story Group.
All right, well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedules to talk a little bit about digital asset management and 6 of what we're calling some of the most prevalent trends that we're seeing in the DAM marketplace. And there's a lot of trends that we're seeing, certainly more than 6. And those of you who are subscribers on the line, I'm sure you've seen many more of the trends that we've been finding in our research and our evaluations, as that Rebecca talked about, and also in our advisory when it comes to our research subscribers and our Real Score effectiveness model subscribers. These are the kinds of things that we're learning from you and passing along to our other customers and learning from our clients on an ongoing basis in our research network. So all of that information we try to consolidate in our research, but we're going to highlight the 6 most prevalent DAM trends we're seeing as we're well into 2017 at this point. So let's get right to it. So the first trend we're going to talk about today, trend number 1, we're going to talk about a phenomenon that's been a few years in the making, and maybe of the 6 that I talk about today, maybe the most important trend from a DAM perspective. And that is that DAM is increasingly being positioned as the digital marketing technology engine. And I think we were some of the first analysts to talk about this, and I'm happy to say that this is really happening. And what I mean by this is, a few years back, if we rewind time a bit, DAM systems were often seen as kind of solo repositories, silos of content, where they kind of existed on their own. And so when you wanted something out of the DAM, you went to the DAM and you pulled it out, and then you did something else with it. And they became they were really your storage repository, and that's it. But the trend that we've been seeing quite a bit over the last few years is really the most sophisticated organizations out there, the most savvy DAM and marketing companies out there. So in particular, we're talking about many of the largest CPG and retail companies that are really leading the way here. But what they're doing is they're positioning DAM as really that engine that powers all of their assets to all of their customer touch points. So if you can see on the screen here, this is our reference model to show how we see DAM positioned in this content and engagement management layer of your architecture, where you have a data layer on the left, you have your customer data in the middle, but then you have your content in the middle before you reach your customer touch points on the right. And I call your attention to these different arrows here, because these arrows are meant to talk about, to showcase where possible integrations might make sense. And what we're showing here is a DAM integrating with your web content management system that's powering your web and visitor experience via the web and mobile devices. We're showing a possible integration from your DAM system to your marketing automation system, where you're managing your email and social campaigns through a number of email and social touch points. And finally, we are showing a possible connection between DAM and social engagement tools. And what this means to show here is those savvy organizations are really positioning DAM as the single source of truth for all of these assets. So there is different types of integrations that are happening between these systems, but nonetheless, the true source of these assets always comes back to the DAM. And that's a pretty powerful thing if you think about it. Being able to track all your assets back to a single source is a powerful thing, in that you're able to ensure a level of brand consistency that many organizations dream about. And so this all sounds well and good. Like I said, there's certain organizations kind of leading the way here, but this is becoming the dream of many organizations, or the holy grail of many organizations, where they're trying to get to. And this is happening over time, and there's integrations are happening in piecemeal fashion. Not everyone's just jumping in and having all the integrations happen at once, but we're seeing these integrations happen. Whether they're light integrations or heavy integrations, they are happening, and the marketing technology experience when it comes to assets is becoming more cohesive, and that's something that we're certainly seeing from many of our clients. So that's trend number one. Trend number two is this phenomenon that we're calling agency decoupling. And I use the example of our friends Gwyneth and Chris here, who went through a very, very public conscious decoupling, I think they're calling it. But when it comes to thinking about digital asset management, more and more we're seeing the driver for prioritizing DAM in different enterprises as this notion of decoupling from your agencies. And so I'm sure many of you on the call either work at agencies where you're providing assets to your clients, or many of you are working with multiple different types of agencies, whether they're advertising agencies, marketing agencies, brand agencies. But what's true about many of these relationships is that it is almost always a situation where there's a lot of money changing hands, and many enterprises are getting to the point where they say, we need to wake up from the fact that we are hemorrhaging money to our external advertising, marketing, and creative agencies, and we need to get control of those assets ourselves. And so what what organizations are doing is they're seeing DAM as the way to start to take control of these assets themselves. So instead of working within their agency's systems, they are deciding to bring these assets in-house, and the hope here is that the days of requesting assets, waiting for the assets to come back, and paying through the nose for every request that they make to their different agencies will be a thing of the past. So that's really how we need to think about the benefits of taking this in-house on a day-to-day basis. But the big thing where we see organizations get burned here is when they actually do when organizations actually do split with their agencies, because this happens all the time. You know, let's be honest, your relationship with your agency is not going to last forever, and many of you are working with multiple agencies that of which those relationships have good times and bad times. And what we've seen is when these relationships go bad, getting the assets that you have paid for, that you own, that are residing at your agencies, on your agency systems, on your agency servers, how do you get their assets back? And what we've seen there is it's almost never a pleasant breakup. First of all, who's going to pay for the transfer of files back? If it's a acrimonious breakup, oftentimes the agencies aren't willing to help the client get their assets back. And even if it is a pleasant breakup, oftentimes it's a logistics problem. How do you get those assets back to the client? You know, if the client doesn't have a DAM that they own, you know, oftentimes it's just we put a bunch of assets on some sort of drive and send it in the mail, and you get this big drive that ends up sitting under someone's desk for a decade in the future without ever actually using those assets. So it's kind of a sad situation, but many organizations are saying, hey, we need to take control here. We need to own these assets. Let's bring in DAM and control this, and have our agencies interact with our assets on our digital asset management system. Okay. Next up, trend number 3 is something that we're calling the Cloud Clout. So our clients, and I'm sure you all are seeing this as well, our clients are almost universally looking at some measure of cloud solution when it comes to DAM. Now, that's a pretty big generalization, but in today's day and age, it's very rare that we are seeing a pure on-premise DAM solution being selected. Now, even the most conservative enterprises are almost always, when they think about DAM, having some part of their solution in the cloud. It might not be completely cloud-based, but oftentimes there's some notion of the interface or the assets themselves being stored in the cloud. So what that means for different vendors is, in response to this demand from their clients to have some sort of a cloud solution, almost all of the vendors that we cover have some sort of cloud story. And what we're aiming to show in our research is this something that we're calling Cloud Clout, which is how can we measure the experience that vendors have with cloud deployments and with cloud environments, and how well does their architecture take advantage of pure cloud features? And so what we're aiming to show here is, you know, the vendors, while these all have a cloud story, the vendors to the left side of this graphic tend to offer more of a traditional managed hosting type cloud story. And as we move on the spectrum to the right, the ones on the right have a more pure SaaS oriented story. So there's no right or wrong place here, but we want you to really go into this with your eyes open to understand that not everyone's cloud story is filled with the same cloud clout, right? That this is not a one size fits all solution, and you really need to go into any purchasing situation with your eyes open here to really understand the trade-offs of what it is you're actually buying into. Okay, let's move on next to trend number 4. And before I get into this, I want to go back to what we talked about in trend number one. With many of the most savvy organizations positioning DAM as truly their engine of their digital marketing technology stack. That's all well and good, but that's not the whole picture, right? Just having DAM power or move assets to different systems and out to your different customer touch points. That's a win, certainly, but that's not the entire story or entire solution to all of the enterprise's challenges when it comes to assets. And oftentimes, what we see our clients encountering when they go through a DAM project is they do get some wins here, but they are often struggling with what happens before the assets get into the DAM. And some of you might call that the creative process, or the work in progress workflow, the creative workflow, or the content operations side of the house. Is what happens to create these assets that ultimately make it into the DAM that power those other systems. And oftentimes the management view of this creative process looks something like this. They know it starts and they know it ends, but no one really knows what's happening in the beginning, in the middle there. And more importantly, no one knows exactly how much it's costing. And this is why we are seeing organizations here who invest in DAM really start to look back at the creative process and see, okay, we're starting to get control of our assets here, but how much are we spending for these assets to even get into the system before we even ingest them into these systems ourselves? And so what's happening is people within organizations, and particularly management within organizations, are following the money trail here, and they're trying to say, let's look at the operations when it comes to creating these assets, and it's actually leading to a number of questions being asked. People are asking, how long does it take us to create these assets? How many assets are we able to create? What's our volume? Are we really reusing assets? Are we creating everything from scratch? Are our assets compliant? How can we track what's going on? What stage in the process different assets are? How can we determine who is working on the assets? I bring back the example of the agencies. Oftentimes this work in progress flow is a combination of internal employees and external agencies. There's a lot of back and forth. So there's a lot going on here, and ultimately it's coming down to how much money am I spending to get these assets into the system? And so, not surprisingly, there's a huge focus on this area and a desire for software to help organizations manage this process in a different way. And so there are a couple different software vendor marketplaces trying to attack this problem. So there's certainly traditional workflow vendors. There are collaboration tools. There's a fairly new subset of vendors, but it's pretty immature at this time, called content operations management vendors. And then there's some DAM vendors who are saying we can help organizations with this work in progress flow. But what we're seeing so far is from DAM vendors, what you're getting is really content operations light. Or for some organizations, it's a good place to start, but they often outgrow that what they're getting from a DAM vendor, because this is kind of a bolt-on to their core services. So different organizations are saying maybe the light is a good place to get started, but maybe we need to append some more formal content operations or workflow tools to help us manage that process. And this is becoming more and more of an issue as more clients produce more and more assets. I think this is a common theme through every organization. There's more assets today, there's more digital assets today than ever, and getting a handle on that work in progress process is vital. All right, next up, trend number 5. And here's a rather new trend for 2017. We've always seen the digital asset management marketplace as a rather horizontal software solution. We've always said that vertical expertise of DAM vendors was not that critical to a product selection. In fact, we've always advocated you focus on your core use case scenarios regardless of vertical, and really focus on what it is you're trying to do from a horizontal perspective as your first way of winnowing down the vendor options in the marketplace to build the right shortlist. But of late, with the competition in the marketplace, we've seen a bit of separation happening in the marketplace, and certain vendors are aligning themselves with different verticals. And this isn't necessarily good or bad, but it's certainly something that's happening. And so I don't want this to be your only discriminating factor in selecting the right DAM system for your particular needs, but it is a factor in 2017, and you should be aware of a particular vendor's vertical expertise, even if it's not necessarily a technical factor. It sometimes can come down to the experience a vendor's professional services have with a particular industry that can sometimes end up tipping in the scales to a certain vendor being a better partner over another vendor. So I call your attention to a screenshot from one of the tools that we offer to our subscribers. It's called the Real Quadrant Shortlist Generator, and you can see in response to this kind of overall vertical focusing trend of the different vendors, we added vertical expertise as scenarios in our Real Quadrant Shortlist Generator. So in addition to the different horizontal sort of use case scenarios, you can also specify which industry is most important to you. And those of you who have tried this Real Quadrant Shortlist Generator, if you haven't, you feel free to try it out on the Real Story Group website. It's free to try, but you can go through this and select your vertical expertise. You can also select your use cases and give them some weightings. And after you do that, you can get a Real Quadrant spit out to you that is truly custom to your needs. And you can see where which vendors appear in the upper right of the Real Quadrant that are closest aligned to not only your use case scenarios, but also the vertical expertise. And you can play around with those weightings and see which vendors are best suited for the criteria that you enter. So it's a pretty powerful thing. And again, it's a bit new that vertical expertise is becoming this much of a factor, but it certainly is in DAM and in some of the other areas that we cover as well. So that's there for your convenience if you want to take advantage of that. Finally, the final trend number 6 that I wanted to call out today is the maturation of bots, and if I expand that trend outward a little bit, the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning in general. And I think this is sort of a trend that eclipses all software in 2017, where artificial intelligence has made some really impressive strides, and people are trying to figure out how to apply it to all types of technologies and really how can we make our work more efficient when it comes to machine learning. And with DAM, we saw some serious experimentation happen last year, particularly around some applications related to image recognition. In particular, facial recognition was kind of the hot application last year, where people were using DAM to manage their company's employees, and they would enter a bunch of images, and based on some learning, they were able to figure out who was in different images, and it allowed applying people metadata to these images in a much quicker, more efficient way. So that's one kind of real application that we're seeing our clients use it for. But as you might imagine, with the deluge of assets, there's a deluge of necessary metadata that organizations would like applied to their content. And so, we're seeing organizations do integrations with the offerings from Microsoft, from Google, from Clarify, and a whole slew of others. Amazon, IBM are all in this game, trying to provide the best artificial learnings here. And while we've seen a lot of progress, there's still a little bit of a ways to go here. We're seeing organizations definitely get some gains. Most of the time we're seeing it as a starting point where the machine will do some suggestions, and then we have some human intervention then oversee it and validate and curate the metadata that was suggested. I certainly don't think in most cases we're ready to just let the machines do all of our tagging for us, but it's certainly making progress. And in 2017, this is something that we're seeing organizations continue to experiment with, and I think it's only going to become more prevalent. And but I think the key here is to start small, don't bite off too much, but use it in small pieces and do your own experimentation, because it can help your teams be more efficient with the assets, particularly the tagging of assets. All right, and before I pass it back over to Rebecca, I just wanted to call out a couple things, because if you're all interested in digital asset management, there are a few upcoming events and webinars that I want to call your attention to. This afternoon, in just a half hour, I'll be doing a webinar for our subscribers on the 6 secrets that vendors won't tell you about DAM technology. So I hope some of you will stick around and for that. And don't worry, if you decide to subscribe at a later date, it'll be archived for you in your subscription. In addition, I want to call your attention to 2 conferences that we'll be speaking at in the next few weeks. The Creative Operations Exchange out in San Francisco, talking about some of those work in progress workflow and creative operations issues that we discussed. And of course, the Henry Stewart DAM New York Conference, May 10th through the 12th in New York City. Always a great show for those in the DAM industry. For both of these, we have a discount code RSG100 to get you a bit of a discount. So if you want to attend, use that discount, and I hope to see you there. All right, Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you for just to wrap up, and I will check the list of questions.